Hello and welcome to another broadcast of the Peninsula Biz Buzz. My name is Shelley Smith, one of your co-hosts here as a chamber liaison with Peninsula SHRM chapter, as well as my own company, Premier Rapport. Over to you, Bob.
Thanks, Shelley. Bob McKenna from the Virginia Peninsula Chamber of Commerce here today with Jim Utterback. And before I actually introduce Jim, let me just say that the Peninsula Biz Buzz started out just as an effort to raise community awareness to some of the great issues that were going on in the Hampton Roads area in the business community. We pivoted a little bit at the beginning of this COVID crisis to response, and now we are going to begin pivoting again to recovery. And one of the first people that we're inviting on to talk about recovery is Jim Utterback, and he is the VDOT Project Director for the HRBT expansion. And before I go any further, let me just say that this project is very near and dear to my heart because I live in Newport News, and for 3 years I commuted to Little Creek, and for 2 years I commuted all the way to Dam Neck. So I've spent a lot of time crossing the Hampton Roads in the Hampton Roads Bridge Tunnel. So when they talked about expansion, I was thinking, well, maybe I need to start driving down there again in 2025. But I'm happy just driving to Hampton. So as I mentioned, Jim Utterback is VDOT's Project Director for the HRBT expansion. Jim, thanks for being with us today. Can you first, before we get going, can you kind of tell us about your background and how you came to be the Project Director for this important project?
Yes, Bob. I can, first off, thank you for having me on and spend a couple of minutes talking about this project, which is a significant project for the region and a long overdue project. So I've been with VDOT about 20 years. So I was active duty, and then I worked for a private engineering firm before I joined VDOT. So through my career at VDOT, I came in really in the project manager role, and then both managed a residency and then 2 different districts. So I've been in Hampton Roads about 7 years now. So the first 5 years I ran the Hampton Roads district. So very familiar with the area, and managed the construction of the widening of 64, all the regional projects in the area. So when the HRBT project, it was under my purview in the district. It was a large project, larger than many of the projects in the state. So many of the projects put together in the state. So with the opportunity to work on that, they were looking for a senior leader to direct the project, and talked to me, and I moved over to manage the project and try to deliver it. So.
Fantastic. Okay. So speaking of the project, then can you, and you alluded to this a little bit, can you talk a little bit about the history of the project, how it got started, how it's getting funded, where the project originated? I mean, we all knew it had to be done, right? But
yeah. Well, if you look back, this whole facility is very historic in nature. The HRBT, the original crossing in 1957 was one of the first tunnels that actually went from 2 man-made islands in the water, so to speak, and also was one of the longest immersed tube tunnels in the world at the time. So this is quite a history tunnel, and the second crossing and a number of other immersed tube tunnels in the area. So that was, when they built it in 57, it wasn't long before they knew they had to increase the capacity, and in 76, the second tube went across. So as you all know, if you're in the region, this has been a bottleneck for a number of years, and there's been a number of efforts to basically expand or increase the capacity at this crossing, at this harbor crossing. So there was an opportunity with the regional funds. So the Hampton Roads Transportation Fund, which is managed by the HRTAC Commission. So the bulk, almost 95% of the funding is coming out of the regional. So the region is primarily funding the project, with the state putting in also several $100 million. So it's not entirely that way, but that's kind of the background on it. So the project got going really in 2016. We started looking at a number of things. We went through the NEPA process. There had been 2 or 3 other NEPA, which is the environmental clearances that you need to go through to get the project moving. And that got going in 2016, and we looked at working with the region and the HR TAC to identify a way to fund the project and move it forward.
Okay, so great. So you mentioned, you talked about immersed tube tunnels, right? So the existing tunnels are immersed tube tunnels. The new expansion is going to be built using bore tunnel technology. Can you talk about that a little bit? Why bore tunnel technology versus immersed tube technology?
Yes, that's a good question, Bob. And just a kind of a point of clarification, when we went into the project, originally we were looking at immersed tube tunnels. And we decided, based on the technology behind these tunnel boring machines, and believe it or not, the excavating in the soft soil that we have in Hampton Roads is much more challenging than some of the harder rock geotechnical profiles that these machines typically operate in. So with the technology moving to the point that these machines can operate in soft soils, that was an option as well. So we left that open to the contractor, to the contractor team to decide which method they wanted to utilize. So they had the option of either immersed tube tunnel or the bored tunnel. There was 2 teams pursuing this. Both teams decided the bored tunnel, and it was really a risk evaluation by the contractors as they looked at the really the access to the channel. The federal channel is obviously with the world's largest naval base and the naval vessel traffic, along with the Port of Virginia traffic. It's just a significant amount of marine vessels transversing through over the HRBT. So that really was one of the big drivers in the contractor trying to construct the project and minimize the risk, if you will, for access to the channel.
Okay, so where do we stand with the project right now as far as construction goes, and then talk a little bit about the timeline? Okay,
so the project is a large marine works project. So over 3.5 miles of the corridor across the harbor. In the end, is 10 miles going from Settlers Landing down to 564 Norfolk. So that's the entire corridor that we're widening. And part of the marine works project is the permit. So they have to, the contractor, and we've been working with them to acquire their permits to operate or actually construct within the water. So that's been the big driver. So the contract was awarded in April of last year. It's been going about a year. There's a significant amount of design that goes into the contractor's means and methods, which helps him determine the impacts on the waterways, the marine life, and a lot of the other environmental concerns that are involved with a project like this. So he has worked through that process, and we're really in the final stages of trying to acquire the permit. So that's kind of where we're at. I hate to predict exactly the time because we're still coordinating with both federal and state agencies. But we from the contract had set out a year and a half, so roughly 18 months in October. So we feel like we're ahead of that schedule, and we'll know better in the next couple of months how we're doing as our ability to get the permit, which will allow them to go to work on the entire corridor. One thing of note is that they, with the tunnel boring machine or bore tunnel approach, this is a large tunnel boring machine which takes a while to design and manufacture, and also excavate the launching pit for this machine. So that was long lead items that we had identified during the procurement. Those are on the island, but they're actually out of the water, so to speak. So we authorized them to move ahead with construction as far as excavating the launch pit and designing and procuring and manufacturing the machine. So both of those efforts are underway. So they do have a TBM vendor under contract and design, and also they have started moving utilities and are preparing to start excavation of the launching pit on the South Island.
Okay, so and the target completion date I've heard is 2025. Is that consistent with what you're thinking?
Yes, 2025 is correct. That's
Okay.
that's what we're moving toward. We have a substantial completion date in the contract of September of 2025. Final completion November right now. So that's where we're standing. The contractor had put together a substantial completion date that he was looking at in June timeframe. So that's really what he's trying to hold to at this point. We're still early in the project. But we do have the contractor has a good plan, put together to move the project forward.
Excellent. Over to you, Shelley.
So Jim, as you're talking about the contractor that's been awarded, does that include all of the different subcontractors, if you will? I know that you have publications around some of the goals that you hand for the firms that are SWAM and that are, the disadvantaged enterprises. Are there particular goals that you can talk about, or the jobs that obviously have come to the area because of this as well?
Yes, I have some of the numbers, and there's been a number of different things published. Just so on a project like this, and again, this is the contract is just under $3.3 billion. So you're going to end up with a fairly large joint venture. So this one is a large joint venture. It's got basically, Dragados is the lead contractor. It's a international firm. Vinci is another partner, and they have another part of their two factions. So Vinci, Grand Projects, and Doden Componon, and then also Flatiron, which is a large heavy civil, primarily U.S. based contractor. So this is the main partners, if you will. There are a large number of subcontractors that will be utilized in this process. So just a significant amount of, estimates right now are craft labor on the job when it's in full construction will be between 1,000 and 1,200 people. So it's a large project with a large workforce. There are DBE SWAM goals. So DBE is a 12% goal and SWAM is 20%. So these are significant numbers of what we're talking about, and really some of the largest numbers in the state. Already the contractor has awarded $28 million in small business DBE type contracts, and there's been 98 DBE and SWAMs already involved in. So there'll be all types of opportunities. There are DBE and SWAM events where they're reaching out and trying to work with these firms to get them qualified and able to bid and perform work on the project.
Beautiful. Definitely adds to the growth of the economy to have that going on in the midst of a COVID-19.
So Jim, based on that, what would your recommendation be to high school kids who are looking down the road? I mean, get into the trades, right? I mean, there's going to be, between this work and work that's being done at, for instance, Newport News Shipbuilding with 2 carrier build coming, there's going to be a lot of, and offshore wind. There's going to be a lot of trades jobs available in the Hampton Roads area in the next 5 to 7 years.
Correct. Absolutely. There are all kinds of, this is a very unique project, even from a VDOT or transportation, because you have everything that you can think of. So you've got the large interstate road construction, obviously the number of landside bridges, in excess of 25 bridges. We've got the marine trestle bridges. You've got an island reclamation. So basically we're doubling the size of the North Island. You've got the tunnel activities. There are new, I think 11 new buildings that will be constructed as part of the facility to operate and maintain the tunnel. And obviously the tunneling itself, which has all of the HVAC, all of the fire life safety systems that go with it. So it's not just a civil project, there's all of the electromechanical components that go with this project. So highly technical, so technical trades, engineering, all of those things will be in high demand on this project.
So one of the things that we've constantly heard in the Hampton Roads area is, we've been referred to as a cul-de-sac, right? But this work and I think it's still 205 miles, or that's the number I've been citing, 205 miles of highway improvement projects that are going on through HRTAC and HRTPO, HRPDC. We're not going to be a cul-de-sac anymore. This is going to be a significant area with a great port, like as you mentioned, the largest Navy base, Newport News Shipbuilding. There's going to be a lot of opportunity here. And before COVID hit, man, it was so exciting that we were going to be really on a roll. Now, what this is going to do is help us recover faster than some other areas. Do you agree with that?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I would agree. There's a lot of opportunities on this project, along with the other projects that you had mentioned going on. There's a lot of work in the area as we, again, continue to get this project into a construction notice to proceed, hopefully late summer, early fall, and there will be a lot of opportunities with this.
Okay, and one of the other false narratives that I'd like to talk about is this idea that we do not cooperate and collaborate as a region, and I think that's completely false, and we've been doing pretty well in the last year or two. This is also indicative that there's a lot of local agencies, local localities, everybody else pulling together to get this done expeditiously.
Yeah.
Can you comment on that?
I agree totally. This is one project. It's really hard to find anybody that's opposing it. So regionally, the leadership got behind this. It's a significant investment. And there's a lot of support to do it. In the public, we had a number of public meetings. We've probably met with over 60 different groups over the last couple of years. The overwhelming question I'm asked is, why does it take so long? So that's one of the challenges. It is a very complex project and quite an undertaking, but it is regionally. It's been a great thing for everybody to try to get behind it and address this chokehold and address it and help capacity and people's life going across that crossing for years to come.
Beautiful. Jim, is there anything as we go into wrap that we've not asked you or that you want to inform the viewers and the listeners about? Or resources if you still have the bid process going for anybody who's listening, where they might go to get more information?
Yeah. Shelley, thank you. The contractor is really trying to get his plan together and start, is going to be outsourcing and putting out a lot of information to the community for opportunities for subcontractors to bid on. So all of that's coming here in the next couple months to try to get the work going. I will say, this is, as you both know, this is a very busy corridor. This carries, approximately 100,000 vehicles a day. And, as we start into construction, I just ask people to be safe and pay attention and be patient. So it's a heavy civil construction. It will be a lot of inconveniences. Hopefully we'll have more opportunity to discuss, but I think that's the biggest thing is we get going until people get used to the going under construction. It's just really, safety for, construction workers in the roadway and safety for the traveling public. So.
And patience.
Patience is a virtue. Yes.
Patience is a virtue.
We don't have any of that. That's where the problem is.
Yes.
All right, Bob, any final questions or closing comments?
No final questions, but I will say I will never again complain about sitting in traffic at the Hampton Roads Bridge Tunnel, because that means that people are on the road and going back to work again. So I look forward to that progress. I look forward to the completion of this project eventually, but I will be patient. So Jim, I want to thank you for taking time from, I know what is a very busy schedule, and for being with us. And I look forward to having you back for periodic updates. So,
okay.
So good luck and stay safe. And thanks for taking time for us today.
Glad to do it. Thank you.